Hello, sixth grade. Okay, today we are going to be reading a small excerpt, which means a small part, of a story called The Pigman and Me by Paul Zindel. If you'd like to follow along, you definitely can. It's on page 218 of our book. But later, as I read the story, you're going to make a prediction. And so that's why I'd like you to watch this on Edpuzzle so that you don't ruin the story for yourself. Now, this story is a fiction story, which means it's made up. Kind of a nice break from all the nonfiction we've been reading recently. I'll go over how to make a prediction, how to write it, how to back it up once we get to that part, but for now, I just need you to listen. All right, so let's begin from The Pigman and Me. When trouble came to me, it didn't involve anybody I thought it would. It involved the nice, normal, smart boy by the name of John Quinn. Life does that to us a lot. Just when we think something awful is going to happen one way, it throws you a curve and the something awful happens another way. This happened on the first Friday, during gym period, when we were allowed to play games in the schoolyard. A boy by the name of Richard Cahill, who lived near an old linoleum factory, asked me if I'd like to play paddleball with him, and I said yes. Some of the kids played softball, some war ball, and there were a few other games where you could sign out equipment and do what you wanted. What I didn't know was that you were allowed to sign out the paddles for only 15 minutes per period so more kids could get a chance to use them. I just didn't happen to know that little rule, and Richard Cahill didn't think to tell me about it. Richard was getting a drink from the water fountain when John Quinn came up to me and told me I had to give him my paddle. No, I said, being a little paranoid about being the new kid and thinking everyone was going to try to take advantage of me. Look, you have to give it to me, John Quinn insisted. That was when I did something berserk. I was so wound up and frightened that I didn't think, and I struck out at him with my right fist. I had forgotten I was holding the paddle, and it smacked into his face, giving him an instant black eye. John was shocked, I was shocked, Richard Cahill came running back and he was shocked. What's going on here? Mr. Trellis, the gym teacher, growled. He hit me with the paddle, John moaned, holding his eye. He was red as a beet, as a little Frankfurter, Conehead, Moose, and lots of the others gathered around. Okay, so these are a few characters that the author probably talked about earlier in the book, but since this is just a small slice of the book, we haven't met them yet. So their names are Little Frankfurter, Conehead, and Moose, and they'll come up a little bit later. But that's going to happen a lot in this. The author's going to mention someone that probably came before this part of the story, so we just have to sort of roll with it. Okay. He tried to take the paddle away from me, I complained. His time was up, John said. Mr. Trellis set me wise to the rules as he took John over to a supply locker and pulled out a first aid kit. I'm sorry, I said over and over again. Then the bell rang, and all John Quinn whispered to me was that he was going to get even. He didn't say it like a nasty rotten kid, just more like an all-American boy who knew he'd have to regain his dignity about having to walk around school with a black eye. Before the end of school, Jennifer came running up to me in the halls and told me John Quinn had announced to everyone he was going to exact revenge on me after school on Monday. That was the note of disaster my first week at school ended on, and I was terrified because I didn't know how to fight. I had never even been in a fight. What had happened was all an accident. It really was. When Nano Frankie arrived on Saturday morning, okay, so another character that we haven't met quite yet, he found me sitting in the apple tree alone. Mom had told him it was okay to walk around the whole yard now, as long as he didn't do any diggings or mutilations other than weed pulling on her side. I was expecting him to notice right off the bat that I was white with fear, but instead he stood looking at the carvings Jennifer and I had made in the trunk of the tree. I thought he was just intensely curious about what "escape Paul and Jennifer" meant. Of course, the twins, being such copycats, had already added their names, so the full carving away of the bark now read, "Escape Paul and Jennifer, Nicky and Joey," and the letters circled halfway around the tree. You're killing it, Nano Frankie said sadly. What? I jumped down to his side. The tree will die if you cut it any more. I thought he was kidding because all we had done was carve off the outer pieces of bark. We hadn't carved deep into the tree, not into the heart of the tree. The tree was too important to us. It was the most crucial place to me and Jennifer, and the last thing we'd want to do was hurt it. The heart of a tree isn't deep inside of it. Its heart and blood are on the outside, just under the bark, Nano Frankie explained. That's the living part of the tree. If you carve in a circle all around the trunk, it's like slitting its throat. The water and juices and life of the tree can't move up from the roots. I knew about the living layer of a tree, but I didn't know exposing it would kill the whole tree. I just never thought about it, or I figured trees patch themselves up. Now it can feed itself only from half its trunk, Nano Frankie explained. You must not cut any more. I won't, I promised. Then I felt worse than ever. Not only was I scheduled to get beat up by John Quinn after school on Monday, I was also a near tree killer. Nano Frankie finally looked closely at me. Your first week at school wasn't all juicy meatballs? He asked. That was all he had to say, and I spilled out each and every horrifying detail. Nano Frankie let me babble on and on. He looked as if he understood exactly how I felt and wasn't going to call me stupid or demented or a big yellow coward. When I didn't have another word left in me, I just shut up and stared down at the ground. Stab nail at ill Italian bats, Nano Frankie finally said. What? He repeated the weird sentence and asked me what was special about it. I guessed. It reads the same backward as forward? Right, ho ho ho. See, you learn. You remember things I teach you. So today I will teach you how to fight, and you will smack this John Quinn around like floured pizza dough. But I can't fight. I'll show you Sicilian combat tactics. Like what? Everything about Italian fighting. It has to do with your mind and body. Things you have to know so you don't have to be afraid of bullies. Street smarts my father taught me, like never miss a good chance to shut up. Vroom! A plane took off over our heads. We walked out beyond the yard to the great field overlooking the airport. Nano Frankie suddenly let out a yell. Aye! It was so blood-curdlingly weird, I decided to wait until he felt like explaining it. Aye, aye! He bellowed again. It's good to be able to yell like Tarzan, he said. This confuses your enemy, and you can also yell it if you have to retreat. You run away roaring, and everyone thinks you at least have guts. It confuses everybody. Is that all I need to know? I asked, now more afraid than ever of facing John Quinn in front of all the kids. No, tonight I will cut your hair. Cut it? Yes, it's too long. It is? Ah, Nana Frankie said. You'd be surprised how many kids lose fights because of their hair. Alexander the Great always ordered his entire army to shave their heads. Long hair makes it easy for an enemy to grab it and cut it off your head. Whoops. Oh, and cut off your head. Oof. John Quinn just wants to beat me up. You never can be too sure. This boy might have the spirit of Genghis Khan. Who is Genghis Khan? Who? He once killed 2 million enemies in 1 hour. Some of them he killed with yo-yos. Yo-yos? See, these are the things you need to know. The yo-yo was first invented as a weapon. Of course, they were as heavy as steel pipes and had long rope cords, but they were still yo-yos. I didn't know that, I admitted. That's why I am telling you. You should always ask about the rules when you go to a new place. I didn't think there'd be a time limit on handball paddles. That's why you must ask. I can't ask everything, I complained. Then you read. You need to know all the rules wherever you go. Did you know it's illegal to hunt camels in Arizona? No. See? These are little facts you pick up from books and teachers and parents as you grow older. Some facts and rules come in handy. Some don't. You've got to be observant. Did you know that Mickey Mouse has only 4 fingers on each hand? No. All you have to do is look. And rules change. You've got to remember that. In ancient Rome, my ancestors worshipped a god who ruled over mildew. Nobody does anymore, but it's an interesting thing to know. You have to be connected to the past and present and future. At NBC, when they put in a new cookie cutting machine, I had to have an open mind. I had to prepare and draw upon everything I knew so that I didn't get hurt. Nano Frankie must have seen my mouth was open so wide a baseball could have flown into my throat and choked me to death. He stopped at the highest point in the rise of land above the airport. I can see you want some meat and potatoes. You want to know exactly how to beat this vicious John Quinn. He's not vicious. Make believe he is. It'll give you more energy for the fight. When he comes at you, don't underestimate the power of negative thinking. You must have only positive thoughts in your heart that you're going to cripple this monster. Stick a piece of garlic in your pocket for good luck. A woman my mother knew in Palermo did this, and she was able to fight off a dozen 3-foot tall, muscular Greeks who landed and tried to eat her. You think this is not true, but half her town saw it. The Greeks all had rough skin and wore backpacks and one-piece clothes. You have to go with what you feel in your heart. One of my teachers in Sicily believed the Portuguese man-of-war, jellyfish, originally came from England. He felt that in his heart, and he eventually proved it. He later went on to be awarded a government grant to study tourist swooning sickness in Florence. But how do I hold my hands to fight? How do I hold my fists? I wanted to know. Like this. Nano Frankie demonstrated, taking a boxing stance with his left foot and fist forward. And then I just swing my right fist toward as hard as I can? No, first you curse him. Curse him? Yes, you curse this John Quinn. You tell him, may your left ear wither and fall into your right pocket. And you tell him he looks like a fugitive from a brain gang. And you tell him he has a face like a mattress, and that an espresso coffee cup would fit on his head like a sombrero. And then you just give him the big Sicilian surprise. What? You kick him in the shins. By the time Monday morning came, I was a nervous wreck. Nano Frankie had gone back to New York the night before, but had left me a special bowl of pasta and steamed octopus that he said I should eat for breakfast, so I'd have gusto for combat. I had asked him not to discuss my upcoming bout with my mother or sister, and Betty didn't say anything, so I assumed she hadn't heard about it. Jennifer had offered to get one of her older brothers to protect me, and if I wanted, she was willing to tell Miss Haynes so she could stop anything from happening. I told her no. I thought there was a chance John Quinn would have even forgotten the whole incident and wouldn't make good on his revenge threat. Nevertheless, my mind was numb with fear all day at school. In every class I went to, it seemed there were a dozen different kids coming over to me and telling me that they heard John Quinn was going to beat me up after school. At 3 p.m. sharp, the bell rang. All the kids started to leave the school. I dawdled. I cleaned my desk and took time picking up my books. Jennifer was there at my side as we left the main exit of the building. There, across the street, in a field behind Ronkowitz's candy store, there was a crowd of about 300 kids standing around like a big, undulating horseshoe, with John Quinn standing at the center bend glaring at me. You could run, Jennifer suggested, tossing her hair all to the left side of her face. She looked much more than pretty now. She looked loyal to the bone. No, I said. I just walked forward toward my fate, with the blood in my temples pounding so hard I thought I was going to pass out. Moose and Leon and Mike and Conehead and little Frankfurter were sprinkled out in front of me, goading me forward. I didn't even hear what they said. I only saw their faces distorted in ecstasy and expectation. They looked like the mob I had seen in a 16th century etching, where folks in London had bought tickets to watch bulldogs attacking a water buffalo. Okay, this is the spot where we're going to pause, and I'm going to ask you to make a prediction. I would like you to make a prediction about how you think this fight is going to go, how you think it's going to end, or something you think that might happen during the fight. So, remember, there are a few ways for you to back up what you believe will happen during a fight. Okay, so the way in which I would like you to write your prediction is this. Write, I predict blank because blank. So the first blank, of course, will be your prediction. I believe that this character will win the fight. Maybe that's your prediction. Because, and then I need you to give me a reason for why you believe that will happen. Now, you might not be entirely sure why you have that belief. There are a few different reasons that we make predictions. We make predictions because we know what a character did in the past. So was there something in this story that the character did that makes you think he's going to win or lose the fight or do something special in the fight. We also, as the reader, can see the secret thoughts and actions of the character. So, is there a thought or an action that this character had that makes you think the fight is going to end a certain way? We can also use what we know about tropes, and tropes are patterns that lots of authors use in their writing. It's something that is sometimes overdone. Like, for instance, a lot of times in stories, if there is two main characters and one is a guy and one is a girl, then often authors will have those two characters fall in love. So when you read a story and it has a guy and a girl, one of the tropes that you expect is that they're going to fall in love at some point. Now, that doesn't really apply to this story, but is there a pattern that you're seeing in this story that lots of other authors use that you think might be used in this one as well? And then lastly, we can use what we know about the author's style. Is there anything else that's happened in this story so far that the author did that makes you think they might make the character win or lose the fight? So there's lots of different options for how you can explain why you think your prediction is correct, but choose one of them. Try to give me a good reason as to why you think this person will win the fight, will lose the fight, or will do something totally different. It's up to you. But remember to make your prediction about how the fight will go and have it read like this. I predict that blank because blank. Okay. Go ahead and write that down in Edpuzzle right now. All right. Let's continue and see if your prediction was correct. Okay, let's see. So, John stood with his black eye and his fists up. I stopped a few feet from him and put my fists up. A lot of kids in the crowd started to shout, "Kill him, Johnny!" Whoop. Just broke my pencil. A lot of kids in the crowd started to shout, "Kill him, Johnny!" But I may have imagined that part. John came closer. He started to dance on his feet like all father-trained fighters do. I danced too, as best I could. The crowd began to scream for blood. Jennifer kept shouting, "Hey, there's no need to fight, you guys. You don't have to fight, guys." But John came in for the kill. He was close enough now so any punch he threw could hit me. All I thought of was Nano Frankie, but I couldn't remember half of what he told me, and I didn't think any of it would work anyway. "Aye!" I suddenly screamed at John. He stopped in his tracks and the crowd froze in amazed silence. Instantly, I brought back my right foot and shot it forward to kick John in the left shin. The crowd was shocked and booed me with mass condemnation for my Sicilian fighting technique. I missed John's shin and kicked vainly again. He threw a punch at me. It barely touched me, but I was so busy kicking, I tripped myself and fell down. The crowd cheered. I realized everyone, including John, thought his punch had floored me. I decided to go along with it. I groveled in the dirt for a few moments, then stood up slowly, holding my head, as though I'd received a death blow. John put his fists down. He was satisfied justice had been done, and his black eye had been avenged. He turned to leave, but Moose wasn't happy. "Hey, you didn't punch him enough," Moose complained to John. "It's over," John said, like the decent kid he was. "No, it's not," Moose yelled, and the crowd began to call for more blood. Now it was Moose coming toward me, and I figured I was dead meat. He came closer and closer. Jennifer shouted for him to stop and threatened to pull his eyeballs out, but he kept coming, and that was when something amazing happened. I was aware of a figure taller than me, running, charging. The figure had long blonde hair, and it struck Moose from behind. I could see it was a girl, and she had her hands right around Moose's neck, choking him. When she let him go, she threw him about 10 feet, accidentally tearing off a religious medal from around his neck. Everyone stopped dead in their tracks, and I could see my savior was my sister. If any of you tries to hurt my brother again, I'll rip your guts out," she announced. Moose was not happy. Conehead and Little Frankfurter were not happy, but the crowd broke up fast, and everyone headed home. I guess that was the first day everybody learned that, if nothing else, the Zindel kids stick together. As for Nano Frankie's Sicilian fighting technique, I came to realize he was ahead of his time. In fact, these days, it's called karate. All right, so that's the end of our story. I'm curious if any of you predicted what was going to happen there, if he was going to win or lose. Let's see. Tomorrow we'll be doing comprehension questions for this story, and that'll be it for what we do with this story. So thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.